How's it going, guys? I hope that during these uncertain times, each of y'all are doing well. Hopefully you all are able to stay inside, somewhere away from where you're not going to be able to capture or to spread the sickness. I wanted to take a few minutes today in this video to discuss the threat to our liberties that we are starting to see as a result from the reaction to the coronavirus. Don't get me wrong, guys. I think that this sickness is something that is important, that we need to deal with, that we need to follow the guidelines of trying to not spread it, to try to limit the spread, to limit our social interaction. And there are a lot of people that get the disease. The majority of them are going to be just fine. There is a large percentage, though, of people that contract the disease that are going to have severe problems. We see the death rates of this sickness, that it is above the flu and some of the other sicknesses that have gone around. So we do need to take care and do what we can to stop the spread. But what I wanted to do in this video is to talk a little bit about some of the reaction, some of the direction that I think that we're headed to. I think that we are headed to a constitutional clash in many ways in some of the things that are happening. And that's just kind of what I wanted to cover. I wanted to look at a few articles that talk about this. You can see one that I have here from the Constitutional Accountability Center. The endangers not just public health but the Constitution. One thing that this article talks about is an individual's right to a speedy trial by an impartial jury. However, during the time of the coronavirus, of course, as the article says, it's hard to seat people for a jury during these times without running the risk of spreading the disease. This is just one of the things that is discussed out there that you can find tons of articles on. One that I think is quite interesting is one here. This is one that goes back a few days. And this one is where the Department of Justice wants to suspend certain constitutional rights during the coronavirus emergency. This is one that I believe is going to be grounds for a lawsuit in many ways. I'm sure that the lawsuits are coming at all levels. And I'm not just going to say at the federal level. There's a lot of states that are going to be facing their own challenges. For example, we can see here Rhode Island's governor sends out the National Guard to do a door-to-door search for people from New York. I think that this is something that is in many ways unprecedented in our country. Basically what Rhode Island is wanting to do, because of the large number of people from New York that have the virus, they're wanting them to stay isolated. There's a lot of people fleeing New York because of the sheer numbers of people who are infected. They don't know what else to do, so they're just leaving. They're going to stay with friends, going to second homes or whatever. They're just trying to get out of there. And, the governor basically is wanting to make sure that they stay isolated. And really, if you are coming from an area with a high level of infection, you should. If there's a risk that you have been exposed to someone, you don't want to go out and risk infecting others. I mean, you don't want to be responsible for the death or severe sickness of others, and that's just one of the concerns that they have. But it does set up some constitutional concerns, I guess you could say. We see it in several ways. We see here that Florida is setting up checkpoints to actually screen for people from New York. For kind of the same purpose. They're trying to keep people from some of these hot zones coming in. We can see the same things, people from Louisiana to go into different states. Tennessee, I know here in Kentucky, the governor that we have has issued a travel restriction, a travel warning, telling people not to travel to Tennessee because of the numbers of people down there that have it. I've got friends in Tennessee. Philip, how you doing? Stay safe, buddy. It's a concern because they don't want to bring any more people in that could have that sickness. I guess the ultimate question is, How long does this last? How long are these orders going to be good for? How long can they be good for under the Constitution? Something that is a real eye-opening article that I seen was how that an arrest warrant has been issued for a Tampa megachurch pastor because he had packed service despite stay-at-home orders. They are going to arrest a man for exercising the First Amendment rights. This is, I think, going to be a focal point of some of the lawsuits that we know are coming. The direction of them is something that I think that we should all follow, and I know that it is one that the government is going to be focused in on, especially those who like to pass draconian laws for any reason. I can certainly understand that there needs to be a little bit of people not traveling as much and doing a lot just to try to keep the spread at a minimum. If we overwhelm our healthcare system, there's more people going to be harmed. If more people go to a doctor's office in a day than that doctor can treat, there's people that are going to be left behind. They're just going to have to focus just on critical care patients. And that's what's happening. That's one of the reasons why we hear about flattening the curve and that sort of thing. They're trying to get the level of spread down to where they can treat enough people, or treat the people that get it. And spread it out over a longer period of time and give them more time to treat the ones that they have. If you go take a small clinic in a rural town, they're not really set up to treat 1,000 people coming in at one time. And if you get a large group of people coming in say a single day or something like that, they're not going to be able to treat them. They can treat a lot of people over a longer period of time, but they cannot treat a lot of people in a short amount of time. So that's one of the big reasons why the staying at home, the social distancing, I think is the term that's phrased for it now. That's why it is so important. It is because it allows the system to treat everyone over a longer period of time. That way they're not having to make some of the hard decisions that have been made in other areas. I know that over in Italy, a lot of the doctors over there, they actually had to make bad choices, and that's no other way to put it, or hard choices of who lives and who dies. You got someone who is over 60. They have a limited number of ventilators. They've got somebody that is in their mid-30s or their 20s or whatever, and they're having to decide which of those two patients dies. And the way that it played out for them is that a lot of older people, they just did not treat them. I mean, that's just sad to say. And we don't want that to happen here. And that's why they're trying to slow the spread out over a longer term. That way they can treat more people instead of having to make a lot of those harsh decisions. But this sickness is real. There's a lot of people that, as I mentioned earlier, that are going to get it. They're not going to have major symptoms. They're going to have mild symptoms. But the way that it spreads, there's going to be a lot of people infected that do have very bad symptoms. And those very bad symptoms, those patients that have those severe symptoms are the ones that could overwhelm the medical system, and that's what we want to avoid. But as we see here, it's a balance between our constitutional rights and trying to control the situation. This is one example, as I mentioned, that I think is going to be a focal point. I guess you could say, these people that think that they should control every aspect of your life, they're watching this very closely. They're seeing how people react, and they're certainly going to try to use it to their advantage in the future. I really hate to see what all is happening, but it just goes to show you just how quickly things can change, even in our own country. It just shows how vulnerable our system is, and it's something that we need to all be aware of. But I hope that during this time that what a lot of you guys are doing is thinking about your own self-preparations. There is a lot of more interest in firearms. Did a video recently welcoming a lot of new gun owners, people who have just purchased a firearm. There's a lot of people that are starting to see things a little differently than they did before the sickness. But guys, this is just something I wanted to talk about. I'll have to say that I do have my concerns as far as some of the things that we're seeing, that governments are doing. Just like the pastor of this church, I think it was foolish for him to have services like that. But at the same time, we have to look and see where this is crossing the line. I think that this is something that is something that we need to pay attention to. I really don't know what to say, guys. I'm just kind of doing this offhand, just kind of rough. But I think that it is a concern that each of us need to have. And it isn't just we usually hear from that it's generally one political party or the other that's trying to do more to infringe on our rights. But what we see, this is an article from The Atlantic, is that we're getting groups of people from across the political spectrum who are all saying the same thing. And it's something that we need to be cautious of. For example, if we got into a perpetual state of emergency, I guess you could say, we just get rid of the Constitution. We can't do that. That's something that we have got to be very cautious about. We need to protect our Constitution, our freedoms, because if we don't, no one else will. But guys, it's just a few thoughts that I had. Again, I think that everybody should try to stay at home if you can. Do what you can to stop the spread of this sickness. Even if you had mild symptoms, don't run the risk of infecting someone who may have major symptoms. Okay, someone that could actually lose their life just because you wanted to get out and run around somewhere. But anyways, guys, it's just a quick video. I'd like to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this? Where do you see the risks to our Constitution going? Let me know down in the description below. I'm also going to put a couple of books down in the description to where they're just real good books, I think. There are a couple that I have during this time that are very good when it comes to understanding some of the foundational principles that we have in our government, or at least the intended principles that we have had, that our founders put into our government to the founding of this nation. I'll put links to those down in the description below. You might want to check those out. But anyways, guys, let me hear from you. Be sure to subscribe, like the video. Also, be sure to check out the rest of the videos on the channel. Please share the video because YouTube does shadow ban a lot of my content, a lot of my videos. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you next time.